he's not very computer savvy, but his wife does taxes. And she got the TurboTax for Mac and Windows. And he has the new iMac with the M1 chip and the USB-C ports in the back. And he has a hub. And he plugged in his DVD external drive that he had from Apple and plugged it into his hub. And the hub popped a message up on the screen that said, not enough power. And we said, well, that's pretty simple. We'll just go get a powered hub. And we went to Micro Center, got a powered hub, plugs into USB-C, etc. Didn't work, would not power it up. Then we went to the Apple store. Asked them, how were we going to do this? Asked the store manager and one of the Apple geniuses. They said, okay, buy this powered hub and this extra cable, and you should be good to go. Brought it back to his house, plugged it in. Nope, didn't work. So I said, well, let's try one more place. And we called Mac HQ down on Manchester and talked to somebody down there, and they said, well, let me Google that for a second and see. I think I've heard of something like that. And he says, okay, all you need is a female USB-A to a male USB-C cable. Don't plug it into a hub, just plug it directly into the back of the Mac, and it has plenty enough power to power it. So we drove down there, picked one up for 20 bucks, came back, plugged the DVD drive into the cable and plugged the cable into the back of the Mac, and it worked like a charm. So what I can say is if you have one of those external DVD drives, that's how you're going to get it to work on the new iMacs. Just get the cable and plug it in, and don't plug it into a hub. But it was just kind of interesting that the Apple store manager and one of the geniuses didn't catch it. So that was one of my thrills this past week. So
was that an Apple branded cable, or was it like a Belkin or a third party?
At the Apple store, of course, they got the app. Well, at the Mac store, Mac HQ, it was an Apple cable.
It was, okay.
Yes. So
Actually, I have something else I'd like to say about USB. But first, I'd like to welcome my brother Gary to the meeting. He's on my family membership, but he hardly ever comes. But he is sitting here with us tonight. And
Hello.
so,
Well,
I'll say hi, Gary.
Hello.
hello.
Okay, so about the subject of USB. I recall a few meetings back that Robert Levitt was talking about issues with an iPad and a 2015 MacBook Pro and plugging it in and it not staying powered. Have you gotten past that problem? And
Well,
if so,
believe it or not, I'm going to tell you the story about that. What happened of all things, my MacBook, I think I talked about this, shortly after it died on me in November. And what happened was, of all things, I started looking at simply saying to myself, what can I do about this? I took it to one shop, basically couldn't fix it. Eventually it got taken down, of all things, to Mac HQ, and they simply said, you've got a conglomeration of parts here. They weren't using all Mac parts, using all Apple parts.
your MacBook Pro is not all Apple parts?
That's pretty much it. Basically, somebody had pretty much used an adapter to adapt an M2 drive to work inside a MacBook Pro to give it roughly about 2 terabytes
Oh.
disk space.
So you got an M2 SSD in your MacBook
I
Pro?
had it in that, in that machine. The problem was, of all things, the machine finally up and died, as I said. And basically the only options I had basically were, number one, just simply do with what I had with the with a spare machine, or number two, buy a new machine. Figured, let's go with the new machine. I basically went ahead, just simply dropped a few $100s, rather, matter of fact, it was over $1,000 or so that I had a Mac Mini.
So you bought a Mac Mini.
I bought a Mac Mini to replace the MacBook Pro. It was cheap,
Okay.
quick, and I just simply knew that with the pandemic going
Oh,
on.
what was-
just simply bu-
Now, I want to tell you that the SSD being an M2 is not itself a problem. That is actually a compatible installation. And I'm curious, did you buy that MacBook Pro used on eBay?
Yes, I had.
Okay, well, a lot of them are configured that way because it's an affordable way to increase the size of the SSD. Nothing wrong with that. Now, the problem that you had with your computer is probably something else about it died, probably unrelated to that.
The logic board had died.
Yeah, okay, I wouldn't blame the SSD or the M2 for that.
Okay, but the logic board died, and basically they said it's going to cost more to fix it than basically to buy a new machine.
Okay, I get that. So it was time for a new computer. So basically you
That's
never.
pretty much
needed-
what I had. Yeah,
Basically got out of the problem because you got a bigger problem.
yeah.
Anyway, I do want to mention though to the group that this is a USB power meter. It can measure volts and amps. And because I'm having this issue with the MacBook Pro, I tried this device and compared it to USB ports on other Macs and didn't find anything unusual about the power output of the USB port. So I'm still mystified about that one MacBook Pro. And there's another item that I have here. It can be used with the power meter. It's a load device where you turn this little screw here to control how many amps load you're putting. And so I basically turned that higher and just noticed how the voltage changes as the amps is increased. And the USB ports on the MacBook Pro I was messing with, it seemed to be pretty normal to me.
This is also a power meter what I've got here.
That's
Or
where
a,
USB is at?
That's it's a USB-A.
Yeah, okay. So you bought one of those things too?
Yeah, I saw it of all things on Amazon, and I simply said, hell, buy it. It would probably be useful. that's pretty much
So what
what-
brand did you buy?
What?
Or what brand is that one that you got?
Oh, gosh. I can tell you, this off the top of my head, it's Chinese built. Wait a second here. Maker Hawk USB 3.0 tester.
Maker Hawk 3.0 USB tester.
Yeah, Maker Hawk USB 3.0 tester.
Okay.
I
Okay,
guess
guys.
Terry
we need to
will
start the
paste
meeting.
into the, Terry will paste into the forum about which models these things are.
Or I'll probably send something to the GAMUG list later about them.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so basically you bought your thing and I guess you found nothing unusual about your USB ports either? Or how did it go when you used your tester?
I mean, basically, of all things, basically, I was not able to use it with the old box.
Oh,
But
the
this
computer
box-
failed before you had a chance to use it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay,
I just simply went ahead and simply said, the hell with it. Buy a new machine, let it go.
yeah, okay, well, obviously, that was time to buy a new machine when the logic board went.
Okay, guys, we're going to start the meeting. John's here, he's our president. Steve Mader's first vice president. Glenn House is second VP. I'm secretary and do the website. Alan Thorpe is our treasurer. Let's see, St. Louis Apple Professionals will meet on March 30th this month. At the officers meeting last week, we didn't come up with anything for April yet, so it's going to be a surprise whenever we come up with what'll happen next month. The membership rewards program will continue. I'm writing down people's names as they come online tonight. And we're going
And
to
you
start
got
with,
Gary down, right?
sure did.
Oh, thank you.
And let's see. Oh, so Glenn, do you have goodies for us tonight?
I do. Although my wife keeps telling me that's the most ridiculous name. I
Well,
said,
tell her
well,
come up with a better one. We're open. You know.
that's what I said. I'm like, I was just trying to come up with something that goes with G. It was the only thing I could think of. All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. All right. So the first thing that I was going to share with you guys, and I don't necessarily know why you might want to do this, but you can actually turn your iPhone into, instead of it being color, you can make it grayscale if you would like, or you can actually tint it in various tints. So if you are interested in doing this, you just go in here to the settings, and then you go down to accessibility. And once you get into accessibility, you're going to go to display and text size, the third one down here. And then once you're in there, you go all the way to the bottom, toward the bottom, and there you see this one that says color filters. It's the third from the bottom there. It's off right now. And if I click on that, it takes me into this, and I can turn on color filters. And since I already have it checked for grayscale, oh, wait, you guys aren't seeing it. Are you seeing it colored?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing it fine.
That's interesting. And I know because if you take okay, I guess this isn't going to work me showing this to you, because if you actually take a screenshot of your phone when you put it in grayscale, it'll still take it in color. Now, I don't know if you guys, let's do this. I've set it in grayscale. It's in grayscale right now. I'm going to show you what it looks like there. That's interesting, though, that when I share it here, it's only showing it to you guys in color. So you can change your phone into grayscale if you would like, just make it a black and white essentially.
Oh,
But it's interesting that it's showing up in color through Zoom. So if I go back to that, by the way, you know, I can put, they give you some options. You can see you can make it a red-green filter or more of a, you know, you can change these. So let's say if I pick the blue yellow, and I can, I don't know, boost up some intensity here. It may be hard to tell from there, but it'll change the tint of the screen. I think it's a little hard, but look at my weather thing there. You might be able to tell it's a little bit of a different color. So you can tint your screen there as well. So that was the first thing. If you have a desire, you can make your screen black and white. All right. Second thing, you know, people always seem to struggle with this. So I don't know how many people know how to do this. It's a kind of a simple thing, but I thought I would share it. You know, if you're in a Safari page, and let me pull up something here in Safari, and you're trying to find something on a page, you can do a search fairly easily. And so to do that, you just press at the very bottom there, the little box with the arrow, and that takes you into, you know, your menu here, and you just go down to, you see the fourth one down there is find on page. And so if I pick a word here, let's just say I see the word back in there. So I'll pick back, and it identifies it, and there's 15 of them. I can scroll down, and it's, you know, that's how you do a find on a Safari page in iOS.
So that's
So
cool.
it's really pretty simple. But I think sometimes I've often heard people like, oh, is there a way to do a find or something like that? And as soon as you click off the screen, it just goes away. All right, the third little thing I've got for you. How many of you, have you guys, anybody ever used Shazam before? Are you all familiar with Shazam?
No.
that's the
No.
music, that's the music program, isn't that? That's Hunts for Hits?
Well, it'll
Lots of
identify
music, yeah.
music that's playing.
Yeah,
So it used to be a standalone thing. Apple bought the program. And so I've got it, you know, the app, it looks like you can see it, you know, right here. And if there's music playing, you can tap on it and it'll identify the song. But that's the app. So what you can do is you can add it to your control center. Oop, that's not where I want to go. Sorry. So if you go into control center in your settings, I can go down here and let's see where to go. Oh, there it is. It's music recognition. It's the fifth one from the bottom there. And so I'm going to add that to control center. So now it's in my control center. So when I get out of here, I can go down here and now you will see it on the bottom right here. So now that I've got it there, and we'll see how well this works, I'm gonna just play some music here. And once I've got some music playing, I just will click on it. And if you look at the top there, it tells you it's on. Good. And off. Hold on. Let's try to. I think. All right. I think that not being on Zoom here is messing with. Can you guys hear my music?
Yes.
I can hear
That's
it, yeah.
real
Yeah.
great. It's come together by the Beatles.
Sure. But I think for some reason, I think because it's telling, I'm getting messages about my audio settings. I think being on Zoom is messing with it. I don't know what I'll try it again here.
Try to
Basically,
mute
it's,
yourself, Glenn.
what's that?
Try to mute yourself
Okay.
just briefly.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. Let me. I can't find my mute now that I'm sharing here. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop my share so I can get back to my screen.
To be able to mute by just holding your space bar.
Phone.
It won't let me use my space bar, Alan, to do that. I think it's something that I use this all the time, guys. So I hate that it's not working for my demonstration, but there's got to be something with Zoom here that I'm connected that's messing with it. But could you see where, and I'll just share the screen and show you again.
It said Shazam on it.
Yeah.
at the top of the
So
screen.
yeah, at the top of the screen there, it says Shazam. And so when I would hit it and you would see it says it was on, if you look at the top, and then if music is playing, it would tell you up top there that it's doing that. Now I'm curious, I can try the regular app and see if this works, just to see if I can get it to. There you go, that worked.
Yeah,
So boom, it immediately pulled up, it recognized the song and, it told you the Beatles and you can, I can find out more about it. I can play it, in Apple Music. And so, I can get the album notes. It tells you all kinds of stuff, but you can put this in your control center. Trust me, it works. And then you can just, boom, you'll get at the very top of your screen when it identifies, it'll just be up there and you can press on it if you want more information. The other cool thing I was going to show you, and we'll see if I can do this here. It'll also identify music and video. So I had this set up where, let's get out of here. And I don't know if this is going to work now because the other thing didn't. I've got, and I can't share both my phone and my computer, but you'll feel able to hear it. I've got basically the beginning of the original Star Wars movie playing. Okay, it's just where, where it's the words are scrolling off the screen and the main theme comes on. So I'm playing this on YouTube. and boom. So that was out of a video. That wasn't, so you could be playing a movie and it will recognize the music from a video or just whatever video you're playing. So you can use Shazam with, you know, songs playing, during a video, whatever. I've loved Shazam for years. I think it's great because, you're out, you hear a song somewhere, you're like, what is that song? And you can just press that and it'll identify it for you. And I would say that 95% of the time, it does a pretty good job of doing that. So, but anyway, so Shazam is a great thing. You can, there's the standalone app that you can, download, but you can put it in Control Center. So that's what I was trying to show you with that.
Okay.
And then I had a couple quick little just Mac OS things I thought I'd share as well. I don't know how many of you, ever do this, but a lot of times I've got, multiple windows open or whatever. And I'm not going to bother sharing my screen to show this part of it with you because you can't see what I'm doing on the trackpad. But I used to go and, Command H, hiding windows, and I'd go through, 3 or 4 things. But so much easier if you have 3 fingers on the trackpad and your thumb, and you just go like this apart with 3 fingers and a thumb, it will hide all of your applications and take you right to your desktop. So if you just use 3 fingers and your thumb and you spread them apart, that'll basically just hide everything for you. And now you're right at your desktop. So, you don't have to go through many layers. Is anybody familiar with that gesture?
Well, there's something similar where, of all things, if you set it up right, you can bring your mouse down to a corner, and basically it'll just simply remove everything from the screen, save the desktop.
Hot point,
Yeah.
hot corner.
How do you get
I
it
can't-
back?
Corner.
I had to turn the hot corner off on mine. I can't use that. It interferes with other stuff.
Oh,
But it's just a simple gesture, like, because you just have 3 fingers and a thumb and you're just like that and boom, you're there. And if you do this back, it brings it back. So it's just a quick little gesture. And, I think a lot of times we forget that all those gestures are there, and, or sometimes just remembering what all these things are. And so, every now and then I kind of like, oh yeah, there's a gesture, and I'll go look at that. And then once I start using stuff, then it works pretty well for me. One other thing I want to share with you guys, let's see. Let me bring up QuickTime here. Okay, I'm sure you guys remember this commercial. So I don't know how many of you use Force Touch, but if you're playing a video, I'm gonna turn that down a little.
Here's to the crazy ones.
By the way, maybe my favorite Apple ad of all time. If you have your fast forward and rewind buttons, and if you hold it down, it'll fast forward. But if you press harder, you can get it to go even faster using Force Touch. So if you just hold it a little, you can get it to go a little more. Or if I press harder, it'll, you can get it to go up all the way to 60 times. Now, the only thing that's, bad about that is that I find it's hard to control the level of touch on your thumb on the trackpad. It's very sensitive to go from, 2 to 5 to 10 to 30 to 60 kind of thing. And it's real easy to, but, if I want to kind of search through a little bit like that, and I know I have a little ways to go, it's kind of nice to be able to press harder and go faster across that fast forwarding, or you can do it rewinding, either way. So anyway, just my tidbits and tricks for the month. There you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. Okay, we come to any questions for the group?
I've got a tip that I ran into also this past week. That somebody had an old iPad, a pretty old one. And he's got that new M1 iMac and plugged it in. He was trying to download the pictures off of it. And of course, it wouldn't recognize it at all. So I told him, I said, give it to me. I said, I've got an old iMac at home. And I said, I'll see if I can do it. And so I plugged it into my 11-year-old iMac, and it recognized it. And then I was able to do an image capture it had selected the device and then do an image capture. And then I told it that I wanted to copy all those pictures to a thumb drive. And then I dumped everything to the thumb drive. And then, and the nice thing about that is that it took all the data with it. So if there were date, time, locations on there, it took everything with it. And then taking it to his new computer, opened up photos and import. And I just went in and selected all the pictures and imported them in. And everything went slick, just fine. So his problem was he had left his iPad at a motel, and about a year later, these people sent the iPad back to him because he had his address stuck on it, but somebody stole the cover off of it. So they took the cover but sent him the iPad. So, but his pictures were on there and they had it locked, so he couldn't remember how to get into it. So I had to end up resetting his Apple ID password to get into it. And but image capture was pretty cool. I liked the way that worked in it, and it's pulled all of the data along with the pictures and pasted it into his new iMac with no problems. So I was pretty happy with that. I got one other thing I was working on this week was I replaced my 2 cheap access points that I have in the house with one powerful access point. And I was looking for diagnostic software for it, and I didn't realize when I started Googling it, I found out that, of course, Apple has that nice wireless diagnostics report that you can generate from the when you put the icon on the wireless thing and hold down the option key and click, and it pulls that up, and then you can select wireless diagnostics, and it runs a really big report. Gives you way more information than I think you need, but it's really slick. I was very impressed with that. So in my new access point, instead of having 2 lower power ones, I have one big one I stuck upstairs in 2nd floor, and it covers the whole house very nicely. So it's a Netgear WAX630. So I'm done with my tips.
Okay. Any other questions out there?
Just real quick,
Or
Charlie,
tips?
Charlie, real quick question. Was that a mesh router that you got?
No, it's not mesh. It's just one access point, just one, and it covers the whole house. I've got a 2,400 square foot house, 2 stories, and I get excellent coverage in the basement and 1st floor, and even takes it out to the outside a little bit, but most of the coverage is all inside. So I'm pretty happy with it. Because we have this house that's basically a Faraday cage, because it's got the plaster walls with the wire mesh behind it, and it plays havoc with cell phones and Wi-Fi and everything. So I decided to go big or go home. So I said, which is the biggest one that I could find that would seem to work? And that one seems to work. It wasn't cheap, but I had two $40 access points that were not, they were, the buffering was lousy. Everything was, we were streaming a movie on the back porch, and one of my granddaughters wanted to do FaceTime with somebody, and boy, everything just boom, down. It just killed it. So that's why I said I need it, because I've got 100 meg coming into the house. That's what I pay Charter for. So, and I'm impressed with this. But I mean, I had it before. I thought I had it covered with two fairly cheap access points, but you get what you pay for. That's the moral of my story.
Is that 5 gigahertz, Charlie, or 2.4?
Both. It has both.
Does it sort of intelligently transfer between the two? Depending
Yes,
upon-
yeah, it's, I don't have to do a thing with it. I set it up with everything, and it's pretty good. I'm getting, most of the places in the house, I'm getting anywhere between 80 and 100 meg download, even in the basement. So I was pretty happy with it. My son kept telling me to do that because he used to do the wireless on the campus at WashU. And he said, you need to just get one big one and blast it out to the whole house. And I was looking up where people recommended you set these access points, and said if you could either set it up towards the ceiling on the first floor or close to the floor on the second floor. And that's what I've done. So it's on the second floor, and it does a great job. But I was using that the Apple wireless diagnostics report, and oh my God, it gives you so much information about your network. I'm still wading through that. I still haven't figured out everything that it gives you, but it's very comprehensive. I'm impressed with it. I was trying to find something on the Windows side, but I'll have to download something because they don't have anything on the Windows side that can equal that. I'll have to go and get something. But the iMacs, even my old iMac still has that. I mean, it still brings it down and runs it. So anyway, I mean, if you're looking for it, that's a beauty to do. So, and I got the access point down at the Micro Center. I decided I was gonna, rather than get it online, I was gonna support a local business. So that's what I did.
Charlie, say again how you get to Apple Diagnostics.
You put your put your cursor on the wireless icon and hold down the option key and click on the Wi-Fi icon, and the diagnostic options come up. And then you can run the diagnostic report from there.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
To add quickly to what Charlie was just saying, try clicking on that wireless icon without holding down the option key, and you can see it tells you almost nothing. Then do it again after you press the option key, and you can see the contrast, and you can see all the rich detail Charlie's talking about.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And that it includes it in the software. That's nice. And
Charlie,
Windows.
could you put that model of that Netgear access point that you got, could you put that into the chat so we all have the name of it?
Sure.
Okay, any other questions out there or comments?
Okay.
No? Okay, then we'll get started.
Got a question.
I'm not- Who's talking? Gary?
Yeah. The question with respect to photos. How best to offload a lot of the photo library to is it better to just let it go out to the cloud, or better to put it on a separate hard drive or storage device of one's own? Anybody got any experience as far as how to do that?
Are you wanting to move it, or what exactly are you trying to do?
The internal SSD on the MacBook Air is not large enough anymore. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages.
Yeah, believe me, my music and photo libraries are immense. So
Well, you
I've
could-
never tried to move mine. I've just always kept it on my computer and, but then shared it across devices through the cloud.
Well, you can get a big thumb drive and then do that image capture, and you can grab everything. Just go in and select it from top to bottom. And I pulled in, it was like the guy had like, it wasn't much for an iPad, but it was 500 and something pictures, 525 pictures, I believe, in movies, whatever. And I just pulled it all and stuck it right on the thumb drive. But you're probably talking about, like I've got here, probably 30 or 40,000 pictures. Is that what you got, Gary?
I don't think it's that big.
How big a thumb drive do you need?
Well, but I mean, great. So then I've got a thumb drive. How does one function with it? How does one keep that available so you can look at it in photos from that Mac Air? The idea here isn't to make it no longer available from that Mac Air, but to be able to use it from that Mac Air, but have it on a
Then
different
you got to put,
storage device.
I think you're going to have to put it in the cloud then. So it sounds like to me.
Or I guess you could store it on an external drive and plug the drive into your computer.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then,
because you can tell photos to use a different photo library.
I thought I'd seen that before. Is it, so it's an either or thing, or does it
And I
access
think you can
both
have
libraries
multiple libraries.
simultaneously, or you have to
Well, I
jump
think you
back?
have to tell it which one to use, but couldn't tell you how to do that. I just read that it works, so.
Okay. All right, we'll have to fumble around with that. Other than
Yeah,
that, do you have any great ideas on interesting places to look for saving some space on an old aging Mac Air?
Well, that's one way to
Does it
download a large
support
set of
USB
files
3?
like that, either to the cloud or to a separate hard drive.
Gary, does it support USB 3 or only USB 2?
Just two.
Okay, then you might want to consider going to the cloud, because trying to mount a big photo collection under USB 2 is going to be really slow.
Okay.
Gary, if you put all your pictures on the cloud, all your photo album on the cloud, the operating system will make small versions left on your hard drive, and you just store the rest of the pictures on the cloud as it doesn't need them. You don't look at all those pictures all the time, do you?
No, that's true.
So it will move those pictures and movies off into the cloud. And if you don't look at them, you will save the space automatically, and you'll save a lot of space.
Okay.
Yeah, that does add up. I know that right now I was just looking, my photos library is 125 gigs and my music library is 80 gigs. So there's a reason I went for, when I just bought this new MacBook Pro, I went for a 2 terabyte drive.
Yes.
Yep.
I have an email question. My boss is finally getting out of the work that I had been working with occasionally, and he has combined he's always left his business email with his personal email. I told him to get a separate one. He never did. And now he's selling the business and he has to give the account over to somebody else. And he wants to know, how does he transfer, maybe 10,000 private messages over to another email address?
Wow.
I mean, I know he's got a fairly new MacBook Air, not one of the M ones, but right before that.
If
Could he
he's
just-
got both business and personal email going to the same email address.
Yes, he has to go and just pull out his personal ones. He wants to save all the personal ones that he's been saving.
Well, he's got a row to hoe.
Yeah, I told him this at least 10 years ago that he should have a separate email address for private.
Yeah.
What,
That's
what,
gonna be his problem.
is that a Gmail account?
It's on Mac Highway, in fact. It's same one we use as a group. He has an account there, and they just store all his email. And the company, the person he's selling the business to, wants the domain and everything. So he's got to separate that.
Wow.
Should he just save it to his hard drive and as a local on the Mac email? Or can he open a Gmail account and say, I want to save all this email on the Gmail account?
Oh, I don't know. That's,
Well, if either that or maybe an account at an Apple account on iCloud.com versus Gmail.
Well, he has never opened it. Yeah, but it's still, how do you get that email up onto the Apple servers if you're not just now receiving it?
That I'm not sure about.
I think you might have to experiment a little bit and try a couple different things, see what works.
There is an option on Apple Mail. He is using Apple Mail, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I know I haven't played with this, but I noticed that there is an option in Apple Mail under Mailbox that says new, where there's two options. There's new mailbox or new smart mailbox. And I'm wondering on the smart mailbox, if maybe you can create a rule that will move somehow it'll identify the non-business emails and move them to that. That might be a first step.
Would that be moving them off the server? That's what he's got to do. He's got to
Yeah, that I don't know. I'm talking about a way of getting them separated.
so you can see them.
Yeah,
Well, I know that you can move you can take some of the mail and put it on your computer.
I might be able to help. I can't clarify what the question is. Are we talking about a Gmail account where somebody is using IMAP and that they're subject to the ban on less secure applications? Or what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, there are IMAP accounts on a purchase domain at Mac Highway. So he's got a domain there and he's been receiving email on there for 25 years.
Oh, so he wants to archive the IMAP email because he's going to lose the email address?
Yes.
I think that if you connect your Mac Mail client to an IMAP account, and then you can take all the mail out of your inbox or out of your IMAP folders, and if you store them on my Mac, I think that will take the mail off the server and store it locally, and then you would be responsible for your mail on your own computer, which is exactly what he wants before he loses that email address.
Right, but he can't really put them on his Apple account or his Gmail account or anything else. He just
No, if you move them to on my Mac
right
in the Apple Mail client, that means you're being moved to your own hard drive in your own home directory of your own Macintosh.
right, and he'll be responsible for that.
Yes, you become completely responsible for the retention of your data and the backup of your data.
And then maybe he'd be motivated to throw some of it away. All right, thank you guys. Hey, how many went and watched that video today? Any hands?
I did.
I thought it was pretty good. All right, thank you.
Okay, so if that's all the questions or comments, then let's get started. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Apple event that happened earlier today. And it was nice. It was short, it was just under an hour. So, and a lot of the things that the rumors had brought up were true, at least in part. Although I think Apple had a couple surprises for people. But anyway, let's start in on that. Let me find out here. Okay, Cooks started off with Apple TV Plus. He talked about all the award-winning films, and I thought an interesting thing that they're starting up on Apple TV Plus is Friday Night Baseball. Of course, who knows when that'll ever happen, but that is the plan, that they'll have games, apparently 2 games on Friday nights that are only available on Apple TV Plus. What concerns me about that is eventually that means you might not be able to see all the games you want to see on your normal television stations or whatever, where you normally see them now.
Mhm.
And they're being sold off to different providers. So that might fragment somewhat the audience. But in any case, that's one thing that Apple's doing. The next thing he talked about was iPhone 13 and iOS 15, which are not new, but there are 2 new finishes for it. The iPhone 13, there's a green finish now. And for the iPhone 13, was it Pro called Pro? There's an Alpine green. They look pretty similar to me, although the Alpine green is like a little darker green shade, but no big deal exactly, but that's a new shade that's available. By the way, everything that they mentioned at this event is all available on March 18th, and you can order them now. So everything we talk about is that way. Then he talked about Apple Silicon and the A15. And then the next new thing, truly new, is a new iPhone SE. And it comes with an A15 Bionic chip. It has 3 different colors. It has 5G, and it's priced at $429, although there may be other price points available. But in any case, I'm going to show you a little bit of video on that, just because that was a new product and a pretty decent price for the phone. It looks exactly like the old iPhone SEs, except it has the upgraded chip and the 5G. So let me share screen with you a second here. Are you seeing all those? Okay, so that's a new upgraded product and a pretty decent price point. And I would think if anybody had a really old phone right now that can't do some of the newer things, would be a pretty good phone to think about. $429 is its price, and has all the new capabilities. In fact, it has the same chip as the iPhone 13.
What is the base memory on it?
64. No, wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
32 gigs, I think.
Yeah, I didn't write that down, so I don't know.
All right.
Okay, the next thing they talked about was the iPad Air, and they've updated it with an M1 chip. It's 60% faster than it was. It has 5G capability, of course, center stage, which is where you can point it at somebody who's on FaceTime. And as they move around or other people come into the frame, it widens the space so you can see everybody who's talking to you, which is interesting. It's called center stage. It has USB-C ports. It's 2 times faster that way. It has a keyboard, an Apple Pencil, and it starts at $599 for 64 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes available. Also available on the 18th of March. The next thing he talked about was Macs. And here's where it was going to be kind of new information. They have a new chip. Actually, it's not exactly new. It's where they fuse 2 M1 chips, M1 Max chips together. And they talked about how that's difficult to do so that you can still use the same coding on any apps and stuff. But it allows the chip to be extremely fast. It's like basically 2 M1 Max chips together. It has 114 billion transistors on those 2 chips, kind of amazing.
Oh.
And the new machine that's going to use it is called a Mac Studio. It has an M1 Max or an M1 Ultra. The Ultra is the fusion chip where it's basically 2 M1 Maxes together. I'm going to show you this. I think it's a little bit long, so I won't probably show you the whole thing. But I think it's worthwhile looking at since it is a new piece of equipment. Now let me get back to share. Wait a second. Here. Share. Okay, M1 Ultra. But what they did with it then is create the Mac Studio. And that's the next, actually a new Mac. Now they just kind of show how it's being used in places. There's one more piece of the puzzle though, and that is they have a studio display, which is new. And let's take a quick look. Okay, a few facts. Let's see. The studio let's see, no, Mac Studio with the M1 Max chip starts at $1,999. If with the M1 Ultra chip, it's $3,999. Of course, there's other options that you can add to it, such as the size of the storage. The studio display with its 5K Retina 27 inches is $1,599. All of those things will be available on the 18th of this month, and you can order them now. So that's pretty much all the things they talked about. If you want to see the video in its entirety, it's available. It also has chapters, so you can move to particular parts of it too, like I was doing. Any comments or questions?
I heard a comment from somebody on YouTube right after the performance. He was complaining that the studio display was only 120 megahertz, or no, only 60 megahertz. It wasn't like the new MacBooks that were moved up to 120. So he was a little disappointed for his particular use.
Well, you can't make everybody happy, I suppose.
Well, I know, but he already ordered one. He says he's probably going to return it, but he's going to order it for review purposes. He's one of those influencers kind of guys that gets everything.
Sure.
But that was the only downfall he could see to it. Other than that, he would have got one. He says he really likes the view that you see everybody in, and the quality of it and everything.
One thing is interesting at the very end, I don't know if it was Tim Cook or somebody else that said, there's only one Mac that still hasn't been updated, and that's the Mac Pro, is it? And so that apparently that's still to come. But it looks like this Mac Studio is what's going to replace the 27-inch iMac.
Yeah, they said the 27-inch iMac had been dropped from their sales, from their website.
Yeah. Any other comments? If not, okay. I'm going to turn it over to, we have two other smaller items to talk about. One is, I don't know if any of you create PDFs that you find sometimes get a little bit size-wise too big for either emailing to somebody or posting somewhere. And so I think it was Steve and who? Alan, wasn't it? You talked about, well, Alan found a program. I don't have the name of it, Alan. What's it called? Something about Squeeze.
Actually, Ron, that was me.
Oh, was it huge?
John,
Oh, that's right. So John, you bought it.
Yeah,
What's it called?
PDF Squeezer.
PDF Squeezer. And then who was it? Oh, I'm sorry.
It was Steve.
It was Steve, okay. And
looked
you
at
found another one
Three options.
that was called what, Steve?
PDF Compress Plus.
Right. Steve's was no cost to it, apparently. And John's, it would cost what, $10, John?
$10.
$10. Okay, so we talked about what kind of jobs they do and how well they compress these PDFs down. And I think I'm gonna just turn it over to John and Steve to talk about what they found out, because I think they took the same PDF file and then tried the different programs on it to see if they one did better job and how clear the squeezed or compressed version was. So take it away, guys.
Go ahead, John. I'll do some digging.
Okay, I'm gonna try sharing my screen. Now, let me, can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Hear you.
Let me set some context here. What I'm talking about are two PDF files that we had to upload to National History Day. Now, I know in the past people have heard me talk about that, but just as a refresher, National History Day is a project for junior high and high school students every year. Think of it as your high school or junior high science fair, except it's history. And every year there's a different theme, and people put together, the students put together different kinds of projects that are in honor of the theme. This year, the theme was debate and diplomacy in history. Now, we had the local contest yesterday, and my wife's students submitted, she had 3 teams of students competing in the category junior group website, junior because it's grade 6 through 8. And these boys got together and each created a website, and one of them finished 3rd in the state and is going to go on to the state contest in April at Mizzou in Columbia. Now, the reason why I'm tying this all in is because we got what they have to do, because the local and the state contest are virtual, is instead of creating a, and let me show you. Okay, instead of creating an exhibit and then physically taking the thing up to the UMSL campus where they have these things, they they created physical exhibits, and then they had to virtualize it and send it in as a PDF. So long story short, now I'm showing you this here on the left is the original pre-shrunken or before shrinking PDF file that they sent in. Now, the first part of the PDF file is it's the title of the thing, and then there's this thing called a process paper that tells how they did the research. Then there's bibliographies, annotated bibliographies, which is all fine. That's just text. But down here, then we sent in, and this is all in one PDF. This is the full exhibit. And this is the one that finished 3rd. I'll zoom in on this thing here just a little bit so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. Okay, so you can see this is literally a physical exhibit covered in felt. And it was, we put it on a couple of egg cartons so I could take pictures of it with my iPhone. And it's out in the hallway of my wife's school. Okay, so what you had to do was to take a picture of the entire exhibit and then separate pictures of each of the panels. So you've got the left panel, top, middle, bottom. You've got the center panel, top, middle, bottom, and then the same thing for the right. So we had to send in photos. And then in addition to that, we had to send in the actual text that might have been too small to see in the photo so the judges could read it. Okay, so we get all this done. So I took the thing out to the hall, I took the phone, and I took pictures of all of these sections of the exhibit. I airplayed them over to my M1 MacBook Air that I'm using now, brought them into a PowerPoint template. You could either use PowerPoint or Google Sheets. You couldn't use Keynote, but whatever. So I used what the tool they gave me, brought them into PowerPoint, converted them to a PDF, combined that PDF with these other PDFs. And I did all that just using Preview. Okay, so combining the things together into one PDF was pretty easy. The nasty stuff came in when we went to upload these things, because there is a 20 megabyte file size limit on this beastie. And you can see that I believe it was this one here. Whoops, I don't want open with, I want get info. This beastie is 46.6 megabytes. All right, so that was a hog. And then, so then the question was what to do, what to do. Well, I was I was going to take this thing down to the molecular level, take all the pictures, knock them down to low res JPEGs, re-import them into PowerPoint, reconvert that into a PDF and hope like the dickens that the darn thing would shrink to below 20 megabytes. Well, in the meantime, my dear wife starts looking around and she's Googling around and she says, oh, look, I found this thing called PDF Squeezer. And if you get it from the developer's website, there's a free 7-day trial, but I'm a little bit leery of getting anything off of any website. So I went to the Mac App Store where there was no free preview option. So I just bought the program. It was $10. We were in a time crunch. I knew about some of the other free programs like the one Steve will talk about, but I didn't have time to really experiment with them. In the meantime, this one had very good ratings. So I decided to go with it. And the result of the compression, I can show you here, because this is the compressed version. I called it Antarctic Treaty Complete Light Compressed PDF because this is one of the compression mechanisms that they gave you. So this sucker went from 46.6 megs to 4.2 megs. Pretty darn remarkable. And here's the result, okay? Here is the one, this is the original uncompressed. And I wanted to show you just the graphics part of this thing because, text is text and you can shrink it down and it doesn't matter. But here is a rough idea of what this thing looks like uncompressed. Now over here, and I'll scroll down to the same page, same section, is the same thing. Okay, and I'm zooming in a little bit. This is compressed about 10 times. So 46 megabytes, 4 megabytes. I challenge anybody to see a significant difference. Okay. So for us, given the time constraint we had, and we had a deadline by which we had to submit the entry, blah, 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 blah. And this was in the background of all kinds of problems we were having, registering the kids and with this server that UMSL was using that was constantly not working right and not recognizing passwords and this and that and the other one. We're pulling our hair out, going back and forth. So I decided with the time constraints to spend the $10 and get this solution to the problem. So at least we got the files down well under 20 megabytes. I was very surprised at that. I figured if we were lucky to get them down to 19 and a half, considering that we're starting at 46. But we were able to shrink the things down to like 4. So this is like a 10-fold shrinkage. And all it did, now I don't know much about the PDF file format, except that it obviously is a memory hog or a storage hog. So we were able to cut out the behind the scenes back office overhead and yet retain the stuff that's important for you and me or any other human to see, which is the picture quality.
Yeah.
And of course, the text quality too. So into the story as far as what I've got to say. It was $10 well spent. That was not it's not a rental. You buy it one time, and I'm sure there might be improved versions of this thing down the road, and we'll decide at that time if we want to keep buying the thing. But I did want you to see, as much as within the limitations of this Zoom experience, the fact that we got a 10-fold decrease in file size without, at least in my eyes, a noticeable decrease in the quality of what we were sending in. And we got no comments or anything from any of the judges that any of this stuff was hard to see or was blurry or pixelated or any of that nonsense. So this thing worked. And all I had to do, it took me about 2 attempts to figure out the optimized ratio compression model. Now, the first time I tried to compress this, it went hog wild and compressed it down to it compressed it down to 1% of the original size. And that was awful. That was pixelated. You could hardly read it. So I decided again to try it again. And this time I selected the light compression. And again, I figured that might get us maybe even still over 20 megabytes. But when it came out looking like this and was 4 megabytes, I was flabbergasted. One other quick thing I wanted to show you. This is the program itself. And this is it's Daniel Witt at witsoftware.com. And it is version 4.3.1, blah, blah, blah. There was a version 4 and I think a version 3 available, if not other places, but I just went ahead and got the latest version. I don't know if this thing is optimized for Apple Silicon. All I can tell you is it is grease lightning fast. I mean, it was doing this compression in a matter of just seconds. So if that is running on Rosetta and again going that fast, that's pretty darn remarkable. So this is one, pardon my French, this is one hell of a piece of coding. So, and I'm very impressed with the quality of the program, and I'm glad we were able to find it and get the thing downloaded and working, you know, within the time constraint that we had. So,
Question. What was the other PDF program that was considered?
That's what Steve's going to talk about.
He's going to talk about that.
Hey, John, scroll down through one of those and show us all the pictures, just so we can see how extensive you are.
Yeah, I've got the original one here, but you can see, so this is the whole thing. And then this, I'm going to bring this back over. So this is the top left panel, okay, which you can kind of see up there. And this is it. And all I did was I just moved the phone around and I stood and to where this panel was straight on. So you can see there's the students' words, there's captions, there's photos of some of the ships that originally explored the Antarctic. These are the students' words. And then there's photo of some of the earliest expeditions. And then some current day photos. Map of Antarctica. There was one in here showing, here's some of the people signing the Antarctic Treaty. Let's see, there were also some down here that showed one of the residents. And this one here was kind of nice because this was showing Amundsen Scott Base and with all the international flags. So that was kind of nice to see. And then here's a little thing about some of the minerals that are to be found in Antarctica.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Okay, so let me give back sharing. Okay, let me get, I'm just going to quit out a preview. And
Boy, John, while you're quitting out of there, I just thought I'd mention one of my track girls made it to state as well in National History Day.
oh, really? Oh, good.
And she wasn't even doing it for a class. She just enjoyed doing it so much when she had it in class a couple of years ago. She just did it on her own.
Okay. Now I'm trying to see if I can give back and end screen sharing. Ron, can you just take it over? Or do I have to give it up?
No, you have to quit screen sharing.
Oh, I'm trying to see where it is because I'm.
Try at the top.
It'd be up top there. At the top of your
Yeah,
Zoom.
here. Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't get the.
At the very top of the screen.
Do you have a touch bar?
No, let's see.
Look at the top of your Zoom window. Do you see something up there?
Oh, stop share. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're back.
My turn?
Yep.
Yep.
What do we got here? There. Okay, everybody see that PDF compressed plus that I have highlighted?
Yes.
This is what the icon looks like for it. And it is free. It probably does not have all the bells and whistles that John's does, but on the other hand, if you're cheap like me, it has some appeal. And what I did was I went back to a presentation that I made in August on iOS tips and tricks. I called it iPhone Handy How-Tos. That was a keynote file. And after the meeting, I converted the keynote file to a PDF and I sent it to Ron, and that is what he posted on GAMUG's website. That was, as you can see, it was 35.3 megabytes. I ran it through PDF Compress Plus, and it shrank it down to 5.7. So it's not quite as efficient as John, but that's pretty significant. For me, that's very useful. I exchange a lot of family photos, historical photos with my relatives. And if your PDF is very big, don't even bother trying to send it by a text message. It'll just stall out and it won't send it. Also, it slows down your emails if you have extremely large files. So this is the PDF, the original PDF that I sent to Ron, Handy How-Tos. And you can see all the text is nice and clear and what have you. And this is what it looks like after I compressed it. Before and after. Some of these, find some more pictures. There's the pretty girl. That's before and after.
Yeah, there's really no appreciable difference, is there?
I have gone over this very closely and I see no pixelation. But it's about 1/7 of the size. So if just shrinking it is all that you want, then there's a free one. There's probably some more options in John's. Maybe it does a better quality job, maybe it does it more efficiently. But on the other hand, you can't beat free.
No. Good price.
There you go.
Now, I'll also give you another option that I use quite a bit, but it's not a program if you don't want to have to deal with it. It's a website. It's called I Love PDF. And it does a pretty good job. And so, like I said, if you don't want to deal with, having to actually have to deal with an app or something, here, hold on, I'll show you. That's what their thing is. I Love PDF. And so they've got all these different tools with PDFs that you can use. And so I've been using this for a few years now to compress PDFs and stuff, but you can do all kinds of stuff. So I don't, so anyway, if you, just another option, if you don't feel like having to go the route of actually getting some kind of app or something, you can do it this way too.
That unlock PDF. I download my credit card statements online, and when I move them to the folder where I keep them, all the pages go blank. And also there are a lot of blank pages in the file to begin with that I'd like to delete. I wonder if unlock PDF would help with that? Because when I try to actually delete a blank page, it just ignores me. It won't do anything.
I've never tried it, so I can't speak to that. So, but it might be something you might play around with.
I love PDF. I will make note of that.
Yeah, it's just ilovepdf.com.
Since you're talking about financial stuff, I Love PDF works by you submit the file to them. That means that they can collect your PDF file because they're processing it on their processor. If you get one of the programs that were mentioned before this, then you're processing your own PDF on your own computer, which
That's
would
a
have
good
a
point.
privacy advantage.
That is
Yeah,
a very
nope.
good point.
True, although I've never used it for anything sensitive, so. Yeah, but that's a good point.
Is there a charge for I Love PDF?
No, it's free. Now, I've been, it's been
It's
easy. I've
sad.
used it, but I
It's
gotta tell you,
often
I might
sad.
try John's program just to see how it does, because it sounds like it did a pretty good job.
Some of these things that are free on the internet are free because you are the product. Like if you're being presented with advertising or stuff like that, then you are the product. Or if you're collecting information about you to sell to someone, you are the product.
Other than making money.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, our last thing tonight, we talked about, and it's almost 9 o'clock, so we have to go quick here. It's tax season coming up soon. And we briefly wanted to mention, if anybody wanted to talk about very briefly, what tax programs they use and why they like it or don't like it, or what they've used in the past versus now and so on. So anybody quickly want to talk about that? Personally, I use TurboTax. I've used it since it was called Macintax.
Yes.
I stay with it because I like it, so I know that how it works. And anyway, but I know there's lots of free things out there now. Even TurboTax has a free version.
I use a TurboTax, been using it for years. It's easy, just answer the questions.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. I don't want to fill out forms. It just makes my eyes glaze over when I look at that stuff. So I just answer their questions and it fills it in for me.
Ron, I use Alan got me to using this Tax-Free USA because I had a problem 2 years ago trying to use a tax credit that wouldn't work on the one we had previously been using. So
H&R Blocks. H&R Blocks is what we
our
were using.
block. So we went to this Tax-Free USA, and it allowed me to do this gifting that I had done it was like a tax credit. So this year we got on it and got all the way to the end, and there was no way to put my figures in for the same type of thing. So sometimes they change, and I can't quite recommend it because it seems like Tax-Free USA was a lot of one-line verbiage, and you couldn't see the form until it was done, but they submitted my federal, and I'm happy with that. So
Well, H&R Block couldn't do your return before 2 years ago. So we had to use that one. And my son was using it for his business, because if I went with H&R Block, I would have to get the premier version, pay $75 for it. While this one was free for federal, and it's only like $14 or something like that for filing your state. So
Alan or
just-
David, either one of you, you had trouble with H&R Block. And because of that, you went to Tax-Free USA. Had either one of you tried TurboTax?
I used to use TurboTax, but I was having the same problem there. If I had investments, they wanted me to go step up a level in support. So H&R Block was their standard level, carried all the forms that I needed for investments. And so I just used H&R Block, and then they had this little file thing. And then I just sat, and since I was helping my son do his reports, I knew it worked. And whenever he goes back in there, they have all the files, just like online H&R Block does, or TurboTax. But the TurboTax is only free if you're below, 30,000 or something that you make or something. There's a limit. Other than that, you got to pay for it.
We use
Most
TurboTax.
programs like that, though, if you have a complicated financial system,
No,
you can't use the free ones.
no, you can use the free ones even if you have a complicated. I mean, I have a rental house, and that works. My son has a real estate business, and that works. And David has a lot of donations that he made this year, and so he gets a huge refund because he donated a lot. So
What about the state
Well, you can, each state is 14. Now, when I was using H&R Block, I was doing other people's returns, and I could do them all the federal returns free, up to 5 or something like that, which is how many I was doing. But the state was charging like $19 every time I filed a state return, unless I wanted to print it out and mail it in separately. Then I'd have to get the forms together, and I didn't want to do that.
No, it's much easier to submit online, I know.
Oh, it is. It is.
But to solve my problem for this year, we end up having to print the state form and modify it, and I'll have to mail it in.
But we actually got in with a PDF and pasted over the figures that were wrong and added in the figures that were corrected by having this credit. So we applied our own credit. I taught him
Modified a PDF, yes.
editing the PDF, yes.
Okay,
use-
anybody have a negative, like, don't use this program, it'll drive you nuts?
I never liked the interview thing, you know, the girl sitting there asking, what the next thing we're going to do is talk to you about, you know, just
So, yeah.
cut to the chase.
We use TurboTax Deluxe.
Yeah.
It's $70, I think it is. And it's one of those applications that, like if we have an account with Stiefel Nicholas, and we can patch into our account information and it will import all the figures. I mean, it does it in a second. Saves a whole lot of typing.
Yeah, that's nice.
If you want to file electronically, you can do it for federal for free. If for some reason, if you want to file with state of Missouri for electronically, it costs $25. And I cannot figure out why that is.
I think it's the fault of the state of Missouri.
Money.
Is it the state or is it TurboTax? So,
You know, Illinois has their own online tax forms. So they're free for everybody. Nobody files Illinois tax form with a company.
I tried that, paying the $25 to e-file the state one year, and it was a nightmare. Now, for the last several years, in our particular case, we always end up having to pay both federal and state. So when I went to and I e-filed for federal, I just put in the checking account number and the routing number, and it just took our money. But I knew that I was going to have to pay money to the state, so I thought, why should I pay $25 to e-file my money to the state? I just went through the trouble of printing the bloody forms. I mean, I've got a black and white laser printer that can print a page for, you know, like a penny. So I printed the forms, wrote out the check, stuck it in an envelope, and sent it in. And if it took a little bit extra for the state to get my money, well, tough bounce.
Well, yeah, the federal form, I use on TurboTax, they can deduct, because I had to pay almost every year, so they can just deduct it right out of my account. But the state doesn't allow that for some reason, so I don't know. So I have to send in a check.
That might be why you have to pay the $25. I'm not sure. But again, I thought since I already had to write, you know, so I already had to spend a lot, you know, to pay the difference to the state. I thought I'm not going to pay TurboTax another 25 in addition to what I already had to pay the state of Missouri. So I did it that one time. It left a very sour taste in my mouth, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm just going to print it out and just send it in the check in the envelope.
Well, everybody, it's after 9, so I'm going to sign off, and thanks all for coming. And I hope we informed you in a good way about several different things. And check out Apple if you're interested in any of their newer products, the iPhone SE or the Mac Studio. And we'll say goodnight and hopefully come back in April for something interesting, but I don't know what yet.
We don't know.
Good night, guys.
Okay, good night.
Guys.
Thanks,
Good
Ron.
night.